Hello and welcome to Survivor Now's special for Pride Month. I am David and I am joined by Matthew, another Survivor Now correspondent. And today we have with us a very special guest, the Dr. Evvie. How is your Pride Month going so far, Evvie?
Oh no, we
Oh
lost Evvie's
no,
audio.
leaving us in suspense.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
there
we
we are.
can.
Okay, I just like to be a little tricksy at the beginning of the podcast, but I am here. I am queer. I am ready to do this podcast with you, and I'm having a great Pride so far. It's Boston Pride this weekend, so I feel like it's really kicking off with you all, and then I've got a bunch of fun plans this weekend. So, yes, very happy
Awesome.
to get to celebrate with you both.
Absolutely. And yeah, we're so psyched. So, just to give everyone a brief overview of some of the things we're going to be talking about. So, we're going to discuss why does Survivor resonate so much with the queer community? Because we'll get into it. There are so many fans of so many different types, but there are very large populations of individuals who are queer and Survivor fans. So we're going to dig into that. We're going to touch on some queer journeys in Survivor, maybe those who are not always thought of immediately when you think of queer individuals on Survivor. And we're also going to draft our dream cast for a fantasy season of all queer All Stars Survivor. And chat with Evvie because Evvie has so much to share about Survivor and life in general. So I can't wait to dig into all of that. And before we continue, please make sure to subscribe to Survivor Now on YouTube and Spotify. And also check out all of our other Survivor Now media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and so much more. But on to the good stuff. So let's answer that question I posed before. Matthew asked me this earlier, and I thought we need to talk about this. Why does Survivor resonate so strongly with the queer community? Evvie,
Yeah,
any thoughts?
I mean, yeah, it's such a good question because it really is. I don't know. There's so many queer Survivor fans. Like that feels undeniable. Like I think it's so funny when, as the show started casting more queer people and more diverse people in general. I feel like there's such a like the anti crowd is like, we're the fans of the show. It's like, no, the fans of the show has like tons of queer people. It always had. The first ever winner was queer. I'm curious what you all think. I mean, I think, you know, I think queer people like Survivor the way everybody likes Survivor in the sense of it's the best game ever. You know what I mean? But I think there must be more to it than that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm really curious what you all think. Any theories?
yeah, I'm definitely with you, Evvie. I feel like, queer people have been a part of reality television,
Mm,
with MTV's The Real World and getting into Survivor, like you said, with Richard Hatch being the first winner of Survivor Season 1, but also having Sonia be the first person to be voted out.
mm,
Like, what a bookend that is.
yeah.
And, I feel like there's something to be said about just the game element of Survivor too.
Mm.
It's fun, it's fast, there's a sense of adventure. And I really think there's something to be said about watching a group of people play this game where some of them might be outsiders and some of them might be insiders. And that ball is changing throughout the entire competition.
Yeah, I think that's so real. And it's like I don't know if I mean obviously Richard was and Sonia were drawn to the show and they drew like I think the fact of Richard winning and like the idea like the whole narrative of the first season of you have it, the gay man is the main provider. He's the strongest, like in this like classic male heterosexual provider way, but he's gay and he's naked and he's best friends with the Navy SEAL. You know what I mean? Like it's like literally you couldn't have written it better to be like an impactful story in that way. And the fact that then he goes on to win, I don't know. It's so like it just sets up that it's like it's like that's the self myth about the show, right? Is it's a random group of people and it's like anyone can win with any skills. And I just really think like that beginning, the first run of the show, you have like a gay man, you have like an older woman, you have a black woman, you have like the winners are it is like you have a young like Ethan the soccer player. It's like really get it all like in those first couple winners. um And there's something like special and magical about that, and it's got like, it's camp, and it's got a lot of that sort of things in it also. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
I think you summed that up really well. I think Survivor is multifaceted and I think it appeals to so many people. I think honestly, it's also because it's reality TV. And
Mm.
I think many of the shows that myself and my queer friends really love, RuPaul's Drag Race and Queen of the Universe, for example, there are just so many. Big Brother, I could go on, all the competition reality shows, especially competition reality shows. I don't know what it is about them. We just like the stakes. It is the drama. Like you said, Evvie, it is the high stakes. It's the drama. It's the conflama. It's the madness. It's all of that.
It's our
So
sports, I mean, and the queer people can like sports too, but for me, it's the thing that I gather the people around and we're like screaming over, like, and I think that, I mean, Drag Race really is that, right? Of like, let's go to the bar, like, and like, it really is like the sports bar vibe. And I think Survivor really, really, really has that too. And I don't know, I think there's something I was thinking also about this idea, like queer players and queer viewers. And I think, I do this Pride series on Rob is a podcast called The Pride Has Spoken, and one of my co-hosts in that, Grace Leader, she was saying how like maybe there's something to the idea how like queer people, we are used to like trying to fit ourselves into different molds in the world and like think and like subtly have to deal with like, how am I going to present myself so that I'm safe in this space or so people like me despite, this thing that might make them uncomfortable. Like it's kind of like, it's part of our just innateness of moving through the world is having to do that. And I think that ability to like instinctually track a lot of those things does make for queer people to be good at Survivor, and especially good at like recognizing those power dynamics and like things like that. And I think, I mean, you see that right, from Richard to, the most recent winner. I don't know if we're spoiling on here, but if you haven't watched it yet, from the first queer winner to the most recent queer winner, Jam Jam, who can like really really navigate those situations. And I think that is just, yeah, part of being a queer person navigating the world in some way.
It's really great that we had a winner like Jam Jam come on in before. And I absolutely love that it sort of was like a launch right into Pride.
oh no, you cut out there for a second, Matthew, but I definitely agree. And I think that, yeah, I can't believe it's taken this long for there to be another queer winner. So I'm so glad that has happened again. And I actually had a chance to talk to Jodie Winchesky, one of the former casting people from Survivor. And she was saying that a large portion, a very sizable portion of individuals applying to Survivor are specifically gay men. And I mean, we've all Googled or YouTubed like Survivor audition videos, and that tracks from what I've seen. And I mean, I'm part of the statistic there, so I totally understand. But yeah, Survivor is definitely now more than ever, I think, for everyone, including queer people, and especially because of the strong queer representation on Survivor 44 in specific. I think then more than ever showed us like super stacked cast, which I think all of the new era casts have been fabulous. But 44 in particular, I think everyone was wonderful. And it shows that, yes, you can have a super queer cast and they're going to deliver. Duh.
Yeah, duh. Exactly. It's like, of course. And it's like it's like literally so obvious. Like you could have a whole, I mean, you look at like the, those middle seasons of Survivor where they're casting for like straight hotness and you get a ton of like super boring people, like, I think that's another thing of like, if you're making the choice, like, I mean, I don't know if you, yeah, if you're making the choice to be queer on TV, that like comes with things, amazing things and hard things. And I think like, therefore the people who are putting themselves out there to be on reality shows, we have a story to tell. You know what I mean? We have a reason why we want to put ourselves in this situation where we are going to face face online BS and like all of that sorts of stuff. But like, I think we all also have the experience of, it's so amazing. Like there's more and more queer representation on TV all the time now. And yet like, we are all shaped by we're all, shaped by the experience of not seeing ourselves represented on TV. Right. And knowing what that feels like and knowing how impactful it would be to young us to like see someone like us on TV. And I think that motivation is really there. And so like you get just like I think the most compelling Survivor characters are people who like you kind of know why they're there, what they're fighting for, like what they're overcoming. And I think like queer people really lend themselves to that story because it's like it's our lived experience.
It makes me really excited for future Survivor players that when they grow up watching seasons 41 through now, what's going to happen, which is 45, it's really exciting to sort of see how this is going to shape the game moving forward, especially for queer players.
Totally.
And Matthew, you mentioned Richard Hatch before, and that's the one I think we could use as a segue into our next section because first winner and first queer winner as well set a really interesting precedent for what a winner could be, like you said, Evvie. And yes, we all are very familiar of the canon of Richard and Rudy and breaking down those barriers, and Rudy perhaps using the word queer in a different way than we are now, or a different intention. And I think that it showed a lot of growth and potential of what the show could be and put those relationships in front of people who may have never encountered anything like that before, and their misconceptions were challenged. So that, I think, in a lot of ways helped Survivor become a bastion for and a champion for queer people in a way. But I want to flash forward a little bit because recently I was doing a rewatch of Survivor All-Stars. Who would rewatch Survivor All-Stars, you ask?
I like Survivor All-Stars. I'm an All-Stars apologist. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, you're in good company.
Yes.
And I was watching the reunion, and Jeff is going from person to person, asking how they are now, catching up with them, talking about their relationships, and he gets to Richard. And this is the part that makes me a little uncomfortable. Richard talks about the fact that he just found his partner, then partner, and Jeff can barely get the words out because then he starts laughing and says, well, there's something for everyone on this show, I guess. And
Yikes.
I thought, Jeffrey, you've had such a good showing recently. Like, what are you doing there? So although we have some growth, it's not just like, all right, we check that box off, everything's fine, everyone accepts it. There's still sometimes some exposure of some maybe discomfort or unacceptance that maybe then Jeff had. But Jeff, we love you now. No shots fired. Okay.
No, but I think that is, I mean, I really do appreciate Jeff and everything, he does in the show. And like, he has moved very much with the times, I think, and like, and is learning as, kind of mainstream society kind of moves. And, I think that is one of the cool things about him is I think he really does want to learn, but it also does like take, the people coming across his path to really like put that forefront for him. Like I'll never forget in my casting, one of the first things he said to me, the first time I met him was he said, am I allowed to use the word queer? And it occurred to me that he probably hadn't like been updated on that word since like Rudy said it, and I think I'm the next person to say the word queer on the show, possibly, and it makes you just think of like how much the times have changed. And it is kind of crazy that there's been the same host this whole time, which is something extremely cool. But I think it's not like, I think the onus is on the show and on Jeff, like the individual person, to actually put in the work, right? To like, to fluently tell these stories. And I think it's something that is really important to Jeff and the show. And I know that for sure. And like, obviously Jeff is who he is, and they need to have more different people work on the show, always to bring in those voices. Cause I think, they can do so much with casting, but if you don't have the people behind the scenes, like able to tell the stories, that's always going to hold it back. And telling those personal stories is the thing that makes the show the most special. And they know that, like, I know they know that. So I think it's just a matter of, continuing to meld those things as well as they have been in the most recent seasons.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that Jeff, even on the podcast that it went along with the season, Jeff has stated that he's constantly working on bettering himself. And I think
Mhm.
that looking back on a moment like this in the show's history is so important and, so great to see the progress that we've gone through. And what I went back and watched this moment, when I look at it now, and Richard's so proud to point out that he found love and it seemed like he was so happy, this would be presented very differently today and not laughed at as much as I think we're all sort of in agreement on. And it's even interesting going back and seeing the audience reaction to it too, because there's a lot of applause, but there's a lot of people who sort of bow their heads down or don't really pretend not to notice.
And it could be a few reasons. It could also be because Richard is prickly and was shown as cutthroat. So maybe it's harder for people to believe that the gruff, tough Richard fell in love. Maybe that's just not a side of them that they'd seen. But I tried to counteract my initial thoughts of there's something going on here, but I think there probably still was something going on here, and I'm just making excuses for people, so I'm not going to do that. But
Totally. And I mean, obviously, and if we're talking about Richard and All Stars, I think, something that would have been handled extremely differently is, what happens between him and Suhawk, and which, basically an assault. And it's really it messed up that happened, and that's on the show, and that is like, yeah, Richard is such a complex character because there's like there's amazing. He's a pioneer, and he also did a lot of effed up stuff, and like what happened to Sue on that was like not okay at all. And the fact of it's like just like LOL, Sue was crazy is like a classic, trope of not believing women and not believing women's experiences. So
completely.
yes, the show well, the show has made mistakes over the years, and they have, it's a self-improvement journey for all, I'm sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're adapting. And I don't want to veer off too much, but
Um,
Evvie, you definitely reminded me because you said, yeah, framing Sue in that way was definitely harmful. And in the reunion, they cut to that moment and they didn't show
yes.
the tears of Sue. They didn't show, I don't know. They could have framed it better. They showed her screaming and
Mhm,
pointing at Jeff, and
mhm,
a horrible way to frame it and sensationalize a moment that was obviously very traumatic to her.
mhm. And they,
But
yeah, and I don't, remembered exactly the clip there, but like, yeah, the focusing on her anger and like perceived irrationality instead of like that a man was naked for no reason and like rubbed himself on her, and I think yeah, we're in the trenches. And it's like, I think maybe because he's gay, they think of it as like not that bad or something. And it's just like, like, it's bad. Don't have people be naked. Don't have people touching people naked who don't want to be touched. Like, it's just like basic human decency. And yeah, yeah, I'm glad that is in the past.
likewise.
Yes.
Matthew, you recently were watching one of my favorite seasons, Vanuatu, and that has some really great queer representation. Why don't you share your thoughts while you were viewing?
Oh, it's so good. I kind of watched Amy's journey out of order. Excuse me. I watched Amy's journey out of order. I saw her on Fans versus Favorites, absolutely fell in love. And I was so happy to see her on Vanuatu and sort of see her origins. And then I also got to meet Scout along on that journey as well. And I had a couple of thoughts. Evvie, I know that you got to talk to Amy sometime last year. I think that's really cool. I definitely have a lot of questions there. But there are some moments from Vanuatu that really stood out to me in a very positive way. So, obviously, we're going to talk about the family visit as well, or the loved ones visit, I should say. And also when their tribes won photos of their loved ones. One thing that really stood out to me in particular is Scout had a photo with her and her life partner, Annie, and Rory, who was also there for the reward, commented of that's such a lovely photo. And I think having a moment like that,
Mm,
which was so genuine, that's such an easy thing to cut out of an episode. But I
mm,
love that they kept it in there, and I love that they normalized, her life partner in that moment. And going back to the loved ones visit, what we did not see, unfortunately, were the kisses that were exchanged between Amy and her partner and Scout and her life partner as well. And that's really unfortunate. And Evvie, I know that you talked to Amy about this moment in particular.
Yes, yes. Well, first of all, let me just say that Amy is like the nicest person ever. Like talking to her was such a treat. Like it's so funny because I think in the shows she comes off, and I don't know if it's like this is like her in game mode or this is some like weird editing thing where she gets kind of the, I mean, she's a strong woman, so she kind of gets a little bit of the bitch at it, to be honest. In life she is a freaking wonderful, kind human, just to say. And I love talking to her. And she told me about this moment. Yes, that I think the crazy thing is that what she was telling me is that in the promos for the episode, like in the commercials, it was showing like her and her partner like leaning towards each other. So the network was kind of like advertising, like, watch Survivor this week, there'll be a gay kiss. And it would have been the first gay kiss or at least queer or like woman kiss on CBS. And they even advertised that it was basically gonna happen. And then, as you say, they basically cut that like 1 second out. So you kind of like see a weird like before and then immediate after. And so it's like definitely some weird like baiting happening there. And Amy said it was wild for her because she was like all of her friends and family are all thinking that this is like huge moment's gonna happen, and then it doesn't. But like that itself didn't matter so much to her, but like kind of a very weird weird legacy of the show in doing that. And apparently Mark Burnett after said like America's not ready. It's just like that idea that like somehow like a gay kiss is more sexual or like more inappropriate than a straight kiss, like a hello I haven't seen you in so long romantic kiss, that like you just see like tons of straight ones of these, and yet of course the woman one
Yeah.
is too risque.
Literally the season before, Rob and Amber were demolishing each other's faces.
Like literally, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Ugh.
And they love that. They love Rob and Amber like alone on a date. Yeah, they love that. But Amy kissing her girlfriend is can only be baited, not actually shown.
Well, another thing that I love seeing on that season is during the immunity challenge. So all of the loved ones are blindfolded and they have to go retrieve, I believe, puzzle pieces for their loved one who is still in the competition, with that person guiding them verbally. And one of my favorite moments that I'm so glad they kept in was Amy, who did end up winning this challenge. She broke into song sometimes. She was singing about how much she loves her girlfriend and just kind of expressing how well Chrissy was doing during that challenge. And I just thought that was another small detail that was just really, really nice to see.
Totally. It's so beautiful. And it is just like so special that there were like two like queer women on that season, like and both got to have their partners there for the loved one visit, and that you got to see that moment, and then they win, right? Like that's so it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And to say, I'm pretty sure that when Elaine all the way later in season 39, when her girlfriend, now wife, comes, they make out. So we got it. We got the kiss in there.
Good. It's what we deserve. America
Yes.
is ready, Mark Burnett.
That's
Maybe
right.
you're just
Yeah.
not ready, Mark
Yeah,
Burnett.
Mark.
Yeah. But some queer stories are highlighted more on Survivor for certain contestants as for others. Some individuals, we find out that they're queer in maybe pre-game press or information after the fact, but it's not really touched on during the season. And I actually have a special guest cameo from someone who that is very applicable. Let's
Ooh.
get it started.
Hello, what is up, everybody? Todd from Survivor China. David had reached out and asked, some questions because it's Pride Month. Happy Pride, everybody. Not just to the LGBTQ plus community, but to everyone who celebrates, supports, loves, and just is excited to be a part of such a wonderful, beautiful community. The question that David asked me was, did being gay affect anything with my season of Survivor? And the short answer is no, it didn't. It wasn't really a thing. I was just me. I was like happy and proud of who I am and you know who I love, and that was pretty much it, as it should be. So just remember to love people for who they are. That's what life is. I love you. If you don't love me, that's fine, but maybe you should try to love me. Anyway, happy Pride. Sending all of the love. Bye-bye.
I
He's
love
so
Todd
great.
so much.
That was awesome. Oh no,
Oh,
where did you go?
I don't know.
There
I
you
am.
are.
There you are.
So I'm actually watching Survivor China now, and I'm so happy so far. I'm early in the season, but I'm really happy just seeing Todd being such a strategic mastermind. I'm so excited to see how it all plays out, obviously knowing what happens in hindsight. But just what a fantastic season it's been so far.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
so good. And I also appreciate the fact that it doesn't have to be parading a queer person around and tokenizing them. Todd can just be Todd, and he is him, and being gay is one aspect of him, and it's a reason why we connect with him, but it doesn't have to be all that Todd is. And I appreciate that they didn't try and get as much out of him for that, or like I said, make him a one-dimensional character when everybody on Survivor deserves to be portrayed as a multifaceted, multi-dimensional person, which obviously is hard sometimes. You know, we got our purple edits, we got our whatever edits, we got our Heather edits, which I still don't really know what color I can like assign to Heather's edit, but I digress.
Yeah, no, I think it's so true. And I think, I think it's the best when the portrayal of the person on Survivor is just like really true to who they are, right? So it's like very clear that like that's what Todd wanted, right? Like he happens to be gay. It's something he's proud of, he's not ashamed of, but it's not something he's gonna be talking about all the time. You know what I mean? Like that's who he is. That's the same, when I talked to Amy, I was like, did you and Scout, like, they never showed you talking about both being gay. Like, that's crazy. They must have like cut that out. Right. And she's like, no, we didn't really talk about it. It was just like, yeah, like, and that's who they are. And for me, I talk about that I'm queer all the time because it's my favorite topic. And, that just like is true to me, that like, it is just something that like comes up naturally a lot because it is like more front of mind maybe for me, and that's also partially a generational thing, I think. And it reminds me also of like the Zeke and Brett scene in Millennials Gen X, where you'll have these two gay men from literally different generations, which was the whole framing. And just like different, like, Zeke saying it never occurred to him that he wouldn't talk about being gay on the show because it's so, he talks about being gay all the time. And that's, that's kind of how I am with my queerness. And, but, Brett of a different time, different generation is like, I prefer to just, that's just part of my life, but I don't need to talk about it, and I think, that's the most beautiful, when the portrayal can represent how the person wants to be portrayed, and for me, I'm thrilled that like my rainbow tattoo was in there, and for other people, I'm so happy that they got the edits hopefully that they wanted. So yeah, I think that's wonderful. And love Todd, love that we got a little cameo there.
Absolutely.
And that moment you just mentioned between Brett and Zeke was so beautiful. And I think it was actually like the epitome of millennials versus Gen X for me, which was these two generations coming together and discussing it. And I think what's also important is Zeke even talking about Brett paved the way, like guys like Brett, they paved the way for me to exist as who I am today. And I think that's such an important call out, especially during, every time of the year, but especially during Pride, to highlight those who came before us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Are there any other queer journeys, Evvie, that spoke to you as a viewer?
Well, I think I think that in general, like the Survivor arcs, I mean, it's for me, it's all about the caterpillar to the butterfly, and like some of those stories got to actually happen. Like I think about like Adonathan, who like is thought of as like so weak a lot, and then like there's that one challenge and he like dives below and he gets it and he gets to like have that strength narrative, and then there's a lot of stories also of queer people who like don't get to have the full journey. I think about your Bryces, who I think that's such an example of a person who, was on a tribe where they were trying to tell this story of like, so this is Survivor Cagayan, and you have the beauty tribe, and it's just very obvious that there's like hot white guys and hot white girls, and then Bryce, who's a beautiful, amazing, wonderful, strong, brilliant black gay man, and they don't know what to do with him in the edit. They seem to not fully know what to do with him on the tribe. When I talked to Bryce, he told me that he was like one of the number one providers for the tribe, but they just didn't even show that because it didn't like fit into the narrative of that how they wanted to portray the beauty tribe in Cagayan, and so it's I think that the history of Survivor is littered with those, and I think about I was thinking a lot, this in this amazing season, Survivor 44, we had 6 queer people. So Carolyn, Jam Jam, Matt, Josh, Claire, and Franny. And the queerness of all those people wasn't necessarily a part of this show. And in particular, I think for like Claire and Franny and Carolyn are women who have like Franny was in a straight presenting showmance, and Carolyn has a partner who's a man, and I think that like bisexual, pansexual invisibility is so common in society, and it's common in these edits too. And of course, I don't know how much they were talking about that on the show, but I think like I posted a thing about, of a picture with all these queer Survivor players, including Franny. And, someone commented like, Franny's not queer. What about Matt? And it's like, yeah, you can actually be queer and also date a man. And that's all totally great. And, and I'm no shame to that person. Like they might just not know, I think they were actually asking a question, but just so everyone knows, and so like, yeah, like, I think Survivor is complicated, like the world is complicated, but I think like there have been so many, beautiful queer arcs. And, I think in my own season, Ricard really emerged as the challenge beast strategy boss towards the later part of the game. And that's so, you love to see that, you love to see that.
Absolutely. And before we move on to the next exciting section of this podcast, which entails us making our own little fantasy casts, I arranged for a special video message for you, Evvie, and something tells me you're going to like it.
Just kidding. This is about Evvie. So my memory isn't really a memory because I just feel like they should be thanking me because I literally voted myself out and saved them. So you're welcome. Anywho, it's not really a memory because I just remember pregame, I saw them and I was like, that's going to be my homie. Like, I want to kick it. So then I remember we drew rocks, merge, and I was like, yes. I got my boys, obviously, Danny and Deshaun, and then Evvie. So to my fellow loyally offspring New York Jew, I'm not really a New York Jew, I'm a pseudo New York Jew, but Jew who lives or has New York connections, who is also a Columbia Lion, you're just a real one. Like literally A1 energy from day one. So keep doing you.
Oh my God, that was so special. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you guys. Wow. I love that so much. That's so nice.
I'm so glad that we could make that happen. And I'm just
I
going to
love
rearrange for 2 seconds our little configuration here because Evvie, I want you to be front and center. No offense, Matthew.
All good.
I love Sydney so much, and I will always thank her for voting herself out and letting me get farther in the game by her playing the shot in the dark. No, Sydney is a freaking real one. That's really, really sweet. I love that. Thank you.
Of course. My pleasure. And although Sydney can't be a part of our cast, we will be building our all queer all stars cast, and if you are ready, Evvie, you can tell us who you want first on your tribe. But actually, before you begin, we will be posting our little season, our cast on our Instagram. So be sure to check that out later so you can see all the faces.
Hell yes. Okay. So I'm gonna go for my number one draft pick. My mine's all about the journey and really I really want to see people who we didn't get to see their full stories. So my first pick, I want Spencer from Survivor Tokenshians, who talks in the show about how he's not gonna tell anyone that he's gay, and so he like stays in the closet in the game, and that it seems to like really hold him back from like building relationships with people. Also, there's like a kind of a weird dynamic where maybe JT doesn't think he's like macho enough, so like maybe there was some merit to not revealing that about himself. And I just feel like I know for myself, like the only way I could play Survivor is just being fully myself, because like if you're trying to hide anything extra, you're just like adding another layer that's gonna make people not trust you. And Spencer was holding something so big in, and I just think he could do so amazing if he freed himself from that. So I'm getting Spencer from Tokenshians and giving him the redo, the loud and proud redo, if that's what he wants. But it's fantasy. In my fantasy, that's what he wants.
That's a great pick. I think I remember very distinctly watching Tokenshians as a younger queer person and seeing the scene with him and Sydney in the woods, and he's talking about, or she asks him, have you ever had a girlfriend? And you can see, maybe I was just reading into it, but his expression changed a little bit. And
Totally.
I knew that I just thought about myself, because I wasn't out at the time when I watched that. And I just thought, oh my goodness, how could you put up that front? And like you said, Evvie, I can't imagine, especially now, playing a game and not being able to just be myself. Like, imagine the work it takes to constantly be monitoring yourself, and not even what you say, but your mannerisms and how you present yourself. So it's very, very tough. That's a great choice.
Evvie, I love how you put it, where in a game where you have to hold on to so much information, just having that one extra thing that you are holding in and not being able to talk about makes it just that much harder.
Totally. And you can feel that from people. And like, it's a game, so you don't know. Is it that they don't like me? Is it that they're hiding something from me? Are they trying to vote me out? And it's not about that at all. It's that he's gay and doesn't want to tell you, and it's like, just like, and that is so, again, reminiscent of real life also, that it can, not being able to be your full self can really, really, prevent you from forming really close relationships with people. So yeah. Survivor is life, happy pride, et cetera, et cetera.
Matthew, what about you?
You know what, Evvie, you brought up my first choice a little while ago, but I'm going with Bryce Isaiah from Cagayan.
Yes.
I really fell in love with Bryce. I know he was there for a very short amount of time, but I think he has a lot more game left in him. To me, he was the first person on the mat at the beginning of the episode. I think what happened was Jeff needed their tribe to elect like a leader, someone in a leadership role. Bryce was the first person to sort of point to the person next to him and be like, I think you'd be really good at this. Also, we saw that Bryce was not afraid to start making connections, particularly with Morgan on his tribe. Unfortunately, they were sort of on the outs at that point. But he really was doing well socially. And in that couple immunity challenges that we saw him perform in, he did very well as well. We never saw him get choked up or make any real major mistakes. He always kept his cool and just kept going. And I think if he stayed in a game long enough, and even to the extent that he was already in the game, he would be a massive threat in my book to get to the very end.
Hell yeah. Great pick.
Absolutely. He's also he's just so infectious. Like, who doesn't want more Bryce in their lives, right? Everyone's life can be benefited by more Bryce. And
David, how about you?
I would say Rafe Judkins for many reasons, because Guatemala needs more representation, although not diverse cast. That is my major gripe with Guatemala. That aside, bring back Rafe. I know he's probably not going to because he's so busy just ruling the world with the Wheel of Time. I was about to say the Wheel of Fortune, the Wheel of Time, and all of the amazing things that he's doing. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. he was doing before, so he's got a lot going on. But he won 3 individual immunity challenges. I feel like no one remembers that. He was a super strategic force on the season. Yes, he played emotionally, which a lot of people criticized, but obviously we've seen, especially with Carolyn, that you can be strategic and emotional, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I have always really identified with Rafe. When I was younger, I was like, oh my gosh, that's who I want to be when I go on Survivor. Not necessarily the part where he was falling off the rope bridge or the rope on episode 1, although I do think that's very true to me. I think that I wouldn't have been able to get back up normally, even if I didn't have dysentery like he did. But yes, so to sum it all up, Rafe. We need more Rafe.
Hell yeah.
What about you, Evvie?
Okay, my next pick, another story cut way too short. Give me Claire from Survivor 44, our sit-out queen. I love Claire. I've gotten the chance to know Claire IRL, and she's amazing and wonderful and just had so much more to give and was, I mean, iconic in the few episodes she was there on 44. And I think she has a lot more that she could do. And I think I feel like she's the kind of person, you know, some people when it's like you spend the whole time on Survivor, you're so worried about getting voted out. And I think it happened already. She got voted out pre-merge. Now she can come back without any fear, just fully vengeance, and will kick butt in all those challenges. If she wants to, sit, she can sit. You know.
I'd love to know. Speaking of getting voted out, I mean, as soon as it happens, does it feel like that Band-Aid has sort of been torn off? Like if you were to go back again, could you face it? You know.
That's interesting. I feel like I know I just said that's how Claire would be. So now I have to reflect if that's how I would be. Yes, but it also does suck, you know? So it's like you kind of don't want to have that happen again. But it's like, I think knowing that it's like, well, I feel like the thing I really felt was like it was okay because I felt like overall satisfied, you know? So I feel like but now I almost feel like it's like if I'm gonna go back, I already had a really satisfying first time, so it's kind of like you really gotta win. So anyway, now you got me all tripped up. It's too hard of a question. Yeah, I don't, if I go back, I gotta win, but also it'd be fine if I don't, you know?
It's true. And I only ask because the next person on my list is someone who looked getting their torch snuffed right in the face several times, and that's George Mladinov from Australian Survivor.
Oh, we're going international here. I love it.
I'm going international. Some may know him as King George. He was on Australian Survivor Brains vs. Bronze and Australian Survivor Heroes vs. Villains, the most recent Australian Survivor season. George is just a mastermind. He's helped me see the game in many different ways than I even knew it could be. His strategy was like very simple. I know at times it seemed like he was 4 steps ahead of his opponents, which he was, but I found that his strategy, he said it in one of the episodes, which was keep as few people angry at him as possible. And I think that was really interesting. And he also was not great in challenges. However, Tribal Council is where George really stepped up and I think really thrives in the seasons that he's in. And with him, I mean, you either love him or you love to hate him. And I just think he's such a wonderful player that I would love to see back.
Great addition. Absolutely. I don't even watch Australian Survivor, but I am very familiar with George. You can't be in the sphere or the realm of Survivor on social media and not know of George in some capacity, right?
Oh my God. You have to. You haven't seen any? You didn't watch the Heroes Villains? David.
I want to start from the very beginning.
Fair enough. It's the only season of Australia. I watched a little bit of Blood versus Water, and then I watched all of Heroes Villains. It's truly one of my favorite seasons of all of Survivor. So, almost like so much because of George. So great pick.
You have sold me. And for my second pick, I have chosen someone again who is not gotten enough time to shine, and that is Lyrsa from David versus Goliath. Her energy is so infectious, and from the minute the game started, Lyrsa was underestimated and fell into the role of the David, even though she was already wearing the buff and was very much already the David. I feel like people underestimated her so much more than everybody else, and she managed to get through some really tough votes, and I'm really interested to see how she would play from a good position in the leading the pack.
Hell yeah, I love that. And I love Lyrsa, and she's so smart. Yeah, great pick. Great pick.
Thanks.
I love a good underdog story. And I find with Survivor, it's very interesting. Sometimes people start out as an underdog and they're working their way up through the ranks. And then the next time they come back, they are completely dominating the game, or vice versa.
Absolutely. So who's next?
Is it me?
Evvie,
I think so.
you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not gonna lie. Lyrsa was on my list, so I'm mad at you, but I'll get over it. Okay. I'm gonna go with Romeo from Survivor 42. He made it all the way to the end, and was very not perceived as being a strategic threat. I thought he was wonderful in the pre-merge. He was like really like wheeling and dealing, it seemed like, and I just feel like he has a lot of amazing personality, a wonderful story, and a really special moment in that season. We got to see him and High connect, which is just like always, yeah, like when you have multiple queer people there, they get to talk about really interesting stuff and you get to have it on TV. And I just think that Romeo could come back and like do it all again, because I think people will continue to underestimate him, and I want him to come back and this time take the crown. So I'm throwing Romeo on my fantasy tribe.
You just said take the crown, and that reminds me of every Drag Race little verse that they write, and every single one is, come on, Mama Ru, like, give me the crown. So I hope that's,
and then go home.
I hope that's somehow the challenge. There's a challenge for Survivor where that we can somehow integrate, give me the crown. Which also, side note, Jeff and RuPaul, there are a lot of parallels.
So true.
Especially recently.
Wow.
They both act in a sort of therapist adjacent manner. Rue at Tribal, or Jeff
Rue at Tribal Council. Yep.
I'm gonna have to make that. I'm gonna have to Photoshop that.
I love that.
But Jeff at Tribal Council, and then Rue in the workroom. I just think of like the whole plastique tiara, like I'm your new mommy. The whole, I don't know, but there are just so many parallels between them, and I feel like I don't know what Jeff's equivalent is to the inner saboteur storyline that Rue injects into people, but I'm curious.
No, he totally has. I mean, the thing that he always is asking people, of like, what's your story? Like, what did you learn? Like, he loves that. It's all about, that inner saboteur, and like, and it's like, every time that Jeff comes to camp for some reason, it's definitely like Rue workroom vibes. Everyone's like, ah, like, and freaks out. So yeah, I love that.
It's really interesting. I mean, I'm just curious to know, what was it like the first time you all saw Jeff on 41? I mean, that was a big season. That was new era, first of all, but also right back from the COVID lockdowns.
Yes. Well, first time seeing him on the show, like in the We Are Filming Survivor, was this like insanely epic moment where we just literally like climbed on our season started with a marooning types. We're on this giant ship. We'd been on the motorboats filming some B-roll and stuff before that, and then it's just like, okay, it's time. We have to climb with this little rope ladder, and you're just like nervous as how they're gonna fall, and like it's the beginning and it's happening. And I just remember climbing over the top rung and like swinging onto the boat, and there's just like, boom, Jeff standing there, and you're just like, I'm in Survivor now. Like I'm in the TV, and then it's Jeff, and then it's 40 camera people, and you're able to like perceive the scale of this enormous production. And I just remember Jeff being so excited, like you said about the lockdown and everything. Like no one was more excited for Survivor to be back than Jeff, and he just like it's like to us all like, look at all these people here. Isn't it amazing? They're all here to tell your story. Like, yeah, Survivor's back. And he's just like so excited. And that really like set the tone of like, this is Survivor, and we're all like, could not be more excited to be there. And Jeff really brings that.
I mean, Survivor 41, it's such a special season for so many reasons. And, my next person on my list is actually going to be Jeannie.
Nice. Yes. Genie representation. Yes.
I love Jeannie. I think it was really unfortunate that she sort of ended up with Shan and Ricard. It was the three of them. That was a really, really tough position. Something that stood out to me, Jeannie's one of the first heart-to-heart stories that I think we get on Survivor 41, where she talks about coming from a traditional family and how her mom actually gave her a diamond and said, I want you to give this to your partner. And I think that it was such a beautiful story. You can tell that Jeannie is so proud to tell it. Uh, you know, Unfortunately, that tribe just kept losing and losing, and they kept dwindling down. And at one point, Ricard calls her the spare tire of the group, and then even goes as far to, with Shan, steal her idol. And it was so painful to watch. So I want Jeannie to have a second chance so bad. She seems like such a wonderful personality.
I love that. And it's so, I mean, you can't get better than Jeannie. She's just an amazing, amazing person. So yes, yes, yes. Give her a second shot. I love that.
You've also said, oh, it was so sad that Ua was losing those challenges, but I think Evvie would beg to differ.
It's true.
And
I didn't mind so much. But we could have had Luvu lose one. I would have been fine with that.
that's fair.
Save Jeannie.
Save Jeannie, yeah.
And for my pick, we couldn't have him do a cameo and then not add him to this. So
let's
Todd,
go.
you're getting back in there. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what he could bring to the table. I don't really have to say much here. He's just strategic powerhouse, incredibly personable, just full package. So I'm very, very intrigued.
Yeah,
Hell
Todd
yeah.
came back ready to play that game. I think in some interviews I saw with Todd and his family basically saying like Todd was preparing for this day, much like we see players now prepare to go take on some of the puzzles and challenges. Evvie, I know that at one point you also did one of those. You rebuilt a challenge in your backyard, right?
I even made not even so necessary as a whole backyard. Wait one moment. I'll just grab it.
I'm so excited.
Everybody goes over the top these days with scales and laser printers, which is awesome. Just don't get me wrong. Mad props to Carson and Matthew and everything. But I made just this little puzzle. If you're watching the YouTube, out of like literally pearl beads and like wire, and it was the last puzzle I practiced, and it was sitting right on my desk when I got home. And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you put in the prep, and you might get a grilled cheese on day 16.
I feel a little starstruck seeing those because you were like so proud that you had those beads in your house and created the puzzle.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a special moment. It's a special moment for me for sure.
That's amazing. Who knew when you were obtaining that and making it?
That's right.
That's what it would lead to.
That's right.
Fill in your belly.
That's right. That's right.
I also want to point out with Todd, I mean, Todd gives amazing confessionals and one-on-one. And even, again, I'm just at the beginning of the season, but you just feel like you just get to know him right away as a player and as a person. I mean, obviously, you don't fully know a person who appears on your television, but just to get a sense of who he is as a player is really special.
I think so too. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Todd is super personable. And you're right, he was prepared. He was in the finals for Survivor Fiji just the season before.
Oh, wow.
And was cut for that. And so was Amanda. So yeah, it obviously meant a lot for him to be out there. And I remember talking to him about it, and he said, yeah, before I went out for China, I could actually see on like the Survivor Sucks message boards like who else was going to be out there. So I sort of had an idea of where it was going to be and like who could possibly be there. So talk about prepared, and I'm sure he would be equally as prepared if he came back. But
Wow.
Never.
And it
Yeah.
sure paid off.
So yeah, third round, Evvie.
Okay, well, I've got Spencer, Claire, and Romeo. Okay, for my number 4, I'm going another person we didn't get enough of, Lydia from Survivor 42, our BFJA queen. She's another person who I feel like her personality, I mean, her tweets say it all. Like, she's a huge personality, and I think on the show that didn't really get to come through enough. And I think bring her back now. She's a little older, a little wiser. Hopefully, everyone will keep their votes, and she'll never be in danger. And and I would love to see her back on the island, and see all of her, including that BFJA. So
I agree. I'd love to see Lydia back.
yeah, hell yeah.
Absolutely. Great pick. So Matthew, how about you?
Oh gosh, I now I need to figure out how to present, what order for best suspense. But next, okay, I'm going to stick with another Survivor 41 player. I'm going to go with Ricard. Ricard is a very, very strong player. And what I loved about Ricard is that he had a very strong why for being there. And it was sort of this beautiful through line, which was he had a toddler at home and he and his husband were expecting another baby during the season. He has that great moment at the end with Xander where they're talking on the beach and he admits that, in a week when they were filming is when the due date of that other baby was. And you can tell how bad he wants it and it wants to play. And it's so great that he was able to be out there. He's also responsible for removing the word guys from the phrase come on in, which was a really strong moment in the show and a turning point for better moving forward. We talked about Ricard's dominant gameplay. I mentioned before getting Jeannie's idol. It hurt me in the moment, but it was so entertaining to watch with Shan. I loved Ricard and Shan's relationship as well. However, the reason I chose Ricard is I might want to see Jeannie's revenge, in this cast while we're here. I think I'd love to see that play out. That would be so interesting.
Great choice. Absolutely. Dead ringer, undoubtedly. And I think for me, I'm going to go a little bit further back, and I'm going to go with Bill Posley from Survivor One World. I think that this world needs some positive One World energy, and I think that it, gets crapped on a lot. And I think Bill is the person to redeem One World in people's eyes because he's witty, and I've seen some clips of him doing stand-up comedy, and he's funny, and he's got really good sketches, and I think he's really entertaining. Not to mention, he lived with Colton, and he was on the receiving end of a lot of BS. God. And so just for that, I think he automatically deserves a second chance without Colton.
Hear, hear.
There are some players that definitely, you see storylines play out on a season between two, and you have to make that choice of would you want to see them on the same season again, or would you like to see them play independently? And I think that could be said about a lot of the people that we brought up.
Yeah, hell yeah. Bring back Bill. Justice for Bill.
Yes, come on, Bill. I mean, after that, though, would you really want to play Survivor again if that had been with... Because who knows, which I don't think they'll bring Colton back, but maybe that fear will be in the back of his mind of what happens. It's like a whole Abby Maria and RC situation. RC was like, I'm not coming back because who knows? But I think we've seen the last of Colton on Survivor.
Yes.
I hope he's not on your list, Evvie.
He is not. Am I next? Right? Are we here?
You.
Okay. Speaking of people who didn't have good enough experiences on the show, and I hope that they could have a much better one. I want to see Jackson from Survivor 42 get to actually play Survivor. He, got medevaced, let's call it, from the first episode of the show without even getting cast a vote. And I think Jackson is an amazing person. I mean, he is such an advocate. His Instagram is full of such vulnerable sharing about his transition, and I just think he is really cool, has a really cool story, and I'm just really sad that we didn't really get to see it on the show. And I just think he has he's got so many different lenses between being, he's a strong Southern man. He's also queer. He's also, he's also got tats. I just feel like he has a lot going on there, and I really think he could have played a great game. So I'd like round 2 for Jackson.
I always feel terrible when people don't get that full Survivor experience, whether it be go from challenge to tribal to vote it out, or go on to win the game. And getting medevaced is, I think we can all agree, probably just the worst way to exit the game.
Yeah. And I just also feel like, the way that it was shown, I don't exactly know, how everything went down. Jackson seemed like very understanding of like what ended up happening, but I know that he did experience a lot of hate from the fans also, and I just think that was so uncalled for, and obviously turned very like personal and transphobic and all that stuff, and I hate that for him, and I just hate that he was in that position, and that's all what went down, and that's how it was shown. So I just really want him to get to have a good experience, if that would be what he would want to do, get out there and play again.
Definitely. He deserves it.
Yes.
I think that's a great reminder that what the fans are seeing even with commercials, it's like 45 minutes is not the full story of what actually happens out there. And I think that's so important to keep in mind. David, I'd love to hear who you have on your list next.
Okay. Next I have Gabby from Survivor David versus Goliath.
Nice.
Another icon from David versus Goliath. She's so sincere and willing to be vulnerable and such a rootable person. And I think that Gabby would be underestimated because I think people remember, the picture from her Twitter profile of her crying. I don't know if that's her background. I don't know which one it is on her Twitter profile, but I just remember seeing the picture of her crying in confessional. And yeah, I think that's what a lot of people associate with her. And I think that will actually give her an advantage because people might underestimate her. And yeah, smart person, personable person. I'd like to see more from Gabby.
Great choice.
Amazing choice.
Matthew, how about you?
I mean, next for me, we're going to Vanuatu. So, David, thank you so much. When we were planning for this video, I hadn't seen Vanuatu yet. Like we said, I literally binged it in like 3 days, and I fell in love with Scout, and I want Scout back. I know this was a couple of years ago, many years ago, but again, we talked about the significance of seeing Scout and the photo of her and her life partner, and then also having Annie come out and join her on the island. And I know Scout didn't do great in challenges overall, but she was pivotal to getting herself to the final 3, just by making that choice to stray away from the all-female alliance and go with Chris. And I thought that was a very strategic game move towards the end there. I'm not sure if the right choice would be to get rid of Chris at the end before that, and maybe take Eliza or someone else who was there, or Julie. But I thought that Scout was such a wonderful presence to have on camp that I would like to see her back. And also, just in terms of a diverse cast, I'd love to have more people in the future be over the age of 55, and would love to see a push for challenges and living conditions to sort of accommodate that.
Yeah, terrific choice. Scout is an icon in so many ways, and I just want to hear Scout call someone a little one, because she called Eliza a little one, and I just remember how much that ticked her off, and I just want to see one of these like really young, like new era players come back and be like, "Who is she?" She's like, "Calm down, little one. It's okay that I didn't participate in this challenge. We're going to vote you off anyway. It doesn't matter that we lost because of me." Just kidding. They'd win every challenge with Scout. What am I talking about?
Yes.
And Evvie, how about your last pick?
Okay, for my last pick, give me Jolanda Jones from Survivor Palau. I think she was the first one out, right? Which is just an outrage, which is an outrage. She's a super badass. She's now like a state representative in Texas, and she's super cool. I follow her on Instagram, and I love what she's doing. And she's a powerful voice in politics, and she's a powerful queer woman, Black queer woman, and I love that. We need more of that on the show. And she barely got to play. She got voted up for like no reason, for like picking the like sort of maybe messing up in the challenge, but like probably not really. And she didn't deserve that. And I doubt she would play again because she's probably busy, but maybe not. Give her a shot.
Yeah, Jolanda is a fabulous choice. And they really like to say in the Survivor tapestry that we didn't see Stephanie become a villain until Guatemala. But I would argue that's
Yes.
not
Yes.
true. And the first shred of villainy was when she targeted Jolanda for messing up in the first challenge, and they were taking too much time because Jolanda wanted to take more resources. And I can't remember what it was, a box of Flint or a box of food or water. I'm not sure what it was, but Stephanie got so upset and held that against her. And Stephanie's villain era started a lot earlier than Guatemala. Let's just put the record down. And it came at the cost of Jolanda. And who knows how Oolong would have fared with Jolanda?
Yeah,
I
that
think a
I
lot
mean, that's
better.
why they sucked so bad, you know, because they voted her out. That's right.
Quite a shame. Yeah, if Jolanda can take some time off from her busy schedule and doing very important work, we would love to see her on our
Yes.
screens again.
You know, I'm noticing a theme that a lot of the people that we brought up either are out very early or are in it all the way to the very end.
Mm-hmm. I love
That's
that.
true.
Yeah, and and because I feel like I mean, it's so true. It's like I feel like, and that is, I think, you see the two sides of being a queer person on the show. Either, you can like really, if you can get a foothold, then your light can shine, and you can really like connect with people and use all the amazing skills that we all have as like resilient queer people in the world to make it super far in the game. Or for a variety of reasons, but not certainly not limited to prejudice and other things that isolate queer people, you get out really quick. And it's such a shame, and I hope that we can have more and more of the go deep side of the spectrum.
It's what we
Totally.
deserve.
It's what we
Yeah.
deserve.
Hmm. And I'm gonna go next, so that way Matthew can go last, because I think that his choice is actually the best of all, personally. Not that I don't support my own choices, but I'm gonna have to say from my last choice, Franny from Survivor 44. I mean,
Yes.
come on, the total package. Physically, a powerhouse. Strategically, she's there. Socially, so personable. Like, where is a situation not better because Franny is a part of it? So I think honestly, she's gonna probably come in as probably a threat unless enough time goes by. But I'd still like to see her back. So
Hell yeah.
I feel like Franny in particular is one of those people where you might know going in that Franny is a threat and is not to be underestimated. However, I feel like she's so likable and sociable that it's kind of hard not to like buddy up, at least from what we've seen on Survivor 44.
I totally agree. She's so warm and in person, and like so nice that you're just like, oh, it's Franny, little Franny. I could totally see not recognizing the threat till it's too late.
yeah. And Matthew, what about you?
Uh, my last pick is Evvie from Survivor 41, and here
choice.
are my here are my reasons. Because listen, I think you deserve the title of game changer for a couple of different things. So if there's ever game changers too, my vote is for you to be on it. So we actually kind of got into this a little bit before when you brought out that bead puzzle that you created. I kind of think, David and I talked about it. We think Carson would have done this anyway, but you were the first person in the new era to say, I saw this puzzle on my screen, I created it at home, and I practiced it, and now I'm able to do it. And we see that throughout these next few seasons of players who are being like, yeah, I practiced, and it happened, and I did it. The next thing, one of my favorite moments from Survivor 41, I want to talk to you about this also. When you and Xander misled Liana into playing her knowledge is power advantage, was so perfect and so wonderful. And we talked about camp at the beginning of this episode. And to see you and Xander, especially at tribal council, being like, oh, my friend here, he's gonna help me out. I loved every moment of it. There were points where I was like, oh no, Evvie, like don't give it away. But it was so perfectly done. And I don't know. I hope you realize this, but you were the very first confessional of the new era, which is so cool.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much, Matthew. That's really, really kind and sweet. And I would be honored to be on Game Changers too. No, that's so sweet. And like that whole thing, like, yeah, it's just like it's so surreal that any of that happened and that I would that was actually me. But yeah, that's really kind. And I have to say that whole knowledge is power thing was like ultimate camp, like at all times. And it didn't even get to, if only the final thing had happened, which I really wanted to happen, of Tiffany actually playing the idol on me in that moment, which actually didn't need to happen. It was fine. Thanks, Sydney, again for voting yourself out. But the idol was in Tiff's bra as the decoy. And there was like this wild for me like moment where I'm saying to Tiff, okay, put the idol somewhere that no one will see, that'll be really secret. She's like, I'll put it in my bra, don't worry. And I'm like, really? Because like when I we're wearing mics at Tribal, and I'm like, they always put the mic down my shirt. Are you sure that no one will see like when they're doing that? She's like, no, they never do my bra. No, it's gonna be fine. And of course, we're all in the tent, everybody's there, and the mic person is like futzing with Tiff's bra, and the idol like nearly falls out, destroys the whole plan. But luckily that did not happen. Thank you, Tiffany bra gods, for not spoiling it. But yeah, that was a wonderful thing, and I'd be honored to put on an encore performance. So
I think we need it. Again, this is what we deserve. This is what we deserve. I think that should be the tagline for this episode. This
Yes.
is what we deserve.
Yes.
And I want to dig into your Survivor journey a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And you said Tiffany, so I have to mention, I remember watching your Ponderosa, and two things stood out. One, your conversation with Tiffany. And two, Nasir is pretty dang good at giving haircuts.
Yes. Oh my God. I mean, Nasir is just a multi-talented person. Like anything you ask Nasir to do, he's going to be excellent quality at it. Like dancing, cooking, haircuts, starting the fire, finding the coconuts. Like Nasir can do it all. That is Nasir. Yeah, and the Tiffany thing is so special. Like if people haven't seen it, we had this whole conversation where she's just kind of asking me questions about queerness, and I'm answering them for her. And I'm just honestly so happy that got to be included in the Ponderosa video, because it's extremely true to our relationship, where it's just like Tiffany cares and asks questions from a perspective of like caring and listening. And it's so special. And to find that in a person, with sort of different, she would hate me for saying this, but from a somewhat different generation, and like to actually get someone who like cares and wants to know, and like just I feel like sees me really deeply. Like she always, I showed her a picture once where I had long hair in it, which is just doesn't feel like me. And she was just immediately like, never show me one of those again, because it doesn't feel like you and it freaks me out. And like it's like, it's special. It's like, she sees me in that way. And so it was really, really nice. To get to have that. And I do think, I really went on the show wanting to like educate about queerness and things. And really, really special that I got to be part of it.
One of my favorite moments with you and Tiffany is so hilarious to look back on now, especially with the seasons that have come out after yours. But it's the moment where, so about Xander's idol, but he doesn't have the idol. It's not powered yet. He lost his vote, and there's a special phrase he has to say. And watching you explain this to Tiffany, the audience knows it's the truth. You know it's the truth. You've read the paper. But Tiffany, understandably, it's such a wacky concoction of a story where, again, like I said, Xander risked his vote and he doesn't have his vote, and he also has an idol, but it's not empowered yet. He has to say this wacky phrase, and it sort of leads to, at the end, Voce being voted out. So was it difficult to sort of ask Tiffany to trust you on something like this? Because it sounds ridiculous.
I mean, it's so funny now. And like, I'll make fun of her make fun of her forever. Just like, I read the note, but it's so true. I mean, it's why would that be real? Like why would you believe me that that's real? That doesn't make any, like, that's nothing like that has ever happened on Survivor before, like at all. On the other hand, it's like so bizarre. How could you make that up? You know what I mean? No, but I mean, that is the funny thing. And I think it's so funny to watch in Survivor 44. We had multiple times where people told the truth and people thought those stories were so crazy that those people like were in trouble for telling the truth. And I'm so happy that that isn't what happened for me. But ultimately, I mean, Liana and Tiffany ultimately go and like look through Xander's bag because they're like, I need to see this for myself, you know? No, it's so funny. And like to this, I mean, I love Tiff. My relationship with Tiff is like the best thing I got out of the show. Honestly, I love her so much. And it's so funny because like, even in the now, I mean, she's so smart. Like her read on people is amazing. She's so intuitive, amazing people skills, like just out of this world. Knowing the rules of the intricacies of the things in Survivor is just not her strong suit. And that's why we're a good team.
Absolutely. Evvie, do you have time for one last question?
Absolutely.
Awesome. And this is a question we can all discuss, but how do you think that Survivor and its fans can continue to support and uplift queer voices beyond Survivor and Pride Month?
I love that so much. I mean, I think it really starts with like listening to queer people about queer experiences. And I think like that's the thing, you know, I never want people to be like speaking for me or for my community. I want people to listen to me and listen to people in my community. And like we need people to listen to us and we need support right now. Like you know, there is a horribly powerful anti-trans, especially anti-gay agenda right now in this country. And I just like really do encourage people to, whether or not it directly affects you, like listen, there are queer people in your life that are hurting. And yeah, I think like, and also like educating yourself. Like I'm currently reading this book, Detransition Baby. It's so good. It's about trans women, a detransition trans woman, a cis woman, a lot of complexity of being trans, being queer, being a woman. There's just a lot there. And like, there's so many resources out there for people. So like, there's kind of no excuse for being, like for not, for not seeking that out if it's available, you know. So yeah, this is some stream consciousness, but I just like really, you know, we need support right now, and it's a scary time for us. So yeah, listen to us, you know.
Absolutely. It's 2023. There's no excuse for not educating yourself, and there are things out there, and like you said, it is scary out there, not just because there's, you know, issues with air quality happening right now and residual from fires, but absolutely it's scary out there. So yes, education. And Matthew, any words on this subject?
I think just be kind, right? Like we talked about RuPaul a lot during this session as well. I think it rings true. If you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love anybody else? I think that, you know, there are moments even in Survivor where we see members of our community sort of butt heads and also do things that are unfortunately damaging to others. And I think it's a great reminder that even within our very broad and very diverse community, that we can all still make mistakes. And Evvie, I love what you said about doing the work and getting better. And when you make a mistake, you know, look internally, figure out why that was, and change that habit. So that's where I'll leave off.
Wonderful. This was such a great conversation, and what a great way to cap this off. Evvie, thank you so much for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you all so much. This was so sweet, and I love you had the cameos and everything. Like this is really special, and you're both wonderful. And I just listening to this podcast is supporting queer people, and everyone should be doing it. And it was really wonderful to talk with you all. And I just wanted to say one other thing of ways to support people: vote against Republican lawmakers and the anti-gay, anti-trans agenda. Vote with your feet. Go to protests and speak out, because it's really important. And thank you all so much for having me. I love that I got to do this during Pride. It feels like a very perfect way to kick off this Pride weekend for me. So thank you both so much.
Of course, absolutely. And thank you all so much for tuning in to Survivor Now. And we're wishing you all a very happy, safe Pride Month, and we will catch up with you all soon.